I'm going to kick off Edward, our positioning intelligence agent. We won second
Hello, this is
place.
Edward. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, Edward, it's Troy. So we won second place in 11 Labs Hackathon with Edward. Edward, I'm recording this. We're going to be doing a teardown of a Webflow page and the company itself, and the goal is to improve the positioning. So they're valued at approximately $4 billion dollars with $334 million dollars raised, estimated to be have about $100 million dollars in ARR as of 2022. And as of 2024, there are reports suggesting that they're at about 200 million. So let's go into their website, their brand, and what they're doing. And if you have anything to say, Edward, hit me up.
Congratulations on second place, Troy. That's a solid win. Before I start forming any opinions, I want to ask you a few grounding questions so we're building from the right foundation. When you look at Webflow's homepage right now, what's the first thing it makes you feel? Not think, feel?
Hmm. Smarter sites start here. With Webflow's AI native platform, you can create, manage, and optimize personalized web experience that drive real results faster than ever. So when I look, what do I feel here? Smarter sites. I'm feeling that they're actually positioning this quite well because they're not leading into AI is taking over everything. They're leading into the smarter element of websites. And I think that could be an interesting play.
Interesting. So you're picking up on an intelligence angle, smarter as the lead word. Here's what I want to push on though. Who is Webflow actually talking to when they say smarter sites start here? Because that phrase could mean a developer, a designer, a marketing team, or a founder. And when positioning tries to speak to everyone, it usually lands with no one. So let me ask you this. When you think about who is actually sitting in front of Webflow right now, paying for it, renewing it, and telling their colleagues about it, who is that person?
Hmm, good question. So AI Site Builder is one of the main boxes we have here, template blank site. So who's that main person that's buying this? I mean, I believe that their target market, if I look at their plans and pricing and positioning around that, we have site plans built with Webflow, AI's native website experience platform, free to start and upgrade anytime. So, hmm. I mean, their pricing here is free, $14 a month, $23 a month. I think they're targeting small businesses. They're targeting your average small business that wants a website. That's it.
Okay, so that's an important observation. But here's where it gets interesting. A company valued at $4 billion with $200 million in annual recurring revenue is pricing at $14 and $23 a month. That math only works if you have massive volume at the bottom, or you have a completely different buyer at the top that's carrying the revenue. So here's my question for you. When you look at their enterprise or higher tier plans, who do you think is actually writing the big checks to Webflow? Because I'd argue the small business owner at $14 a month is not what's keeping the lights on at $4 billion valuation. Who do you think their real customer is?
Good question. I mean, if I do the math here, they have over 3.5 million users based on some recent reports. So does that add up? And I'm diving into the Webflow page or the enterprise page here in a moment.
Yeah, let's do that math quickly. 3.5 million users at even an average of $20 a month gets you to about 70 million a month. That's way more than 200 million annually. So the numbers don't quite stack up that cleanly, which tells me a large portion of those 3.5 million are likely on the free plan. So the real question becomes, who is converting? And who is paying premium? Take a look at that enterprise page and tell me two things. One, what language are they using? And two, who are they showing in the testimonials or case studies? Because that will tell us exactly who Webflow believes their real buyer is, even if their
Interesting.
homepage is.
Yeah, yeah. No, this is good. So, okay, see how enterprises achieve a 332% ROI with Webflow. I like that claim. I think that's a strong claim. Then you also have 300,000 powerful brands powered by Webflow. Good catch, by the way. The fact that I'd say over half of their revenues coming from enterprise. I'm happy that you've seen that. Okay, so they have Verifone, 32 global sites launched in 10 days. Lattice, 20% increase in site-wide conversion. Orange Theory Fitness, 6 million cost savings annually. Five Tran, 98% increase speed to market. Walker and Dunlop, 56% increase in foreign fills. NCR Voyix, 10x cost savings and agency fees. DocuSign, wow, 1170% increase in traffic year over year. So they got some good clients here. I have a feeling they're actually offering SEO services. That's fascinating.
Now we're getting somewhere. Look at those names: DocuSign, Verifone, Orange Theory, Fivetran. These are not small businesses. These are mid-market to enterprise brands with real marketing budgets and real operational complexity. And here's the tension I want you to sit with for a second. Their homepage says, Smarter Sites start here at $14 a month with a free plan. But their real revenue is coming from companies that care about 332% ROI, $6 million in cost savings, and 10 times reduction in agency fees. That is a massive positioning gap. They are speaking like a Squarespace competitor on the front door, but operating like a Salesforce or Adobe Experience Cloud competitor in the back room. So here's the critical question for me. Do you think that gap is intentional, like a land and expand strategy where they hook small users and convert them up? Or do you think that's a positioning mistake that's actually costing them at the enterprise level?
Good question. That's really interesting to me because I think they are doing a land grab where they want to be known as the biggest, best web platform. I know that Framer's a big competitor of theirs, I believe. And if they're doing a land grab positioning move, if they're positioned as an enterprise website for enterprise companies, I don't know if enterprise would trust them as much if they didn't have as many consumers actively working with them, if that makes sense. So that's the first thing that comes up for me as we talk through that.
That's a smart instinct. And you're touching on something really important. Social proof at scale creates category legitimacy. But here's where I want to challenge that thinking a little bit. There's a difference between volume as social proof and volume as brand dilution. Because right now, Webflow is sitting in a dangerous middle ground. They're not consumer enough to beat Squarespace or Wix on simplicity, and they're not enterprise enough to beat Adobe Experience Manager or Optimizely on credibility and depth. Framer is coming hard at the designer and creative professional space. Squarespace owns the small business simplicity story, and enterprise is looking at Webflow and still asking, can we trust this with our global infrastructure? So here's what I want you to think about. When a Fortune 500 marketing team is evaluating Webflow against an enterprise competitor, what is the one thing on that website right now that would make them hesitate? What's the thing that creates doubt at that level?
I mean, starting with an AI site builder template and blank site, that's like, who are you for? Are you for beginner? That's kind of the first thing that comes up, but I'm assuming that their enterprise is based on outreach and that they have an active sales team generating consistent leads and working on accounts. Mm, if I go to the second section, they have a thing called Design It Your Way. Use the full power of HTML5 to build responsive flexbox and grid layouts. I don't know if that speaks to the enterprise buyer. There isn't a ton of things on here that, okay, right as I go to the bottom, there's a big section that says make your website your competitive edge. Build a brand, people trust, and pipeline you can measure all with one powerful platform. Now that would speak to an enterprise buyer, Fortune 500. Then they have a bunch of samples of beautiful websites in here. They have Jasper AI. Then they have Ether 1. They have Kula, and they have some beautifully designed websites here, Palmer. Sienna Film Foundation. They have Normal Computing. They have Guila Gartner. So they have some very wonderful social proof here built into the bottom of the page. But I think it would make sense to bring that social proof up top if the Fortune 500 buyer doesn't already have assets in their hands from a salesperson.
Right. And that's a distribution problem as much as it's a positioning problem. But let me go deeper on something. You mentioned the salesperson having assets in hand. That tells me Webflow's enterprise conversion is likely happening off the website, through sales conversations, through outbound, through referrals, which means the website isn't actually doing the heavy lifting for enterprise at all. And that raises a really uncomfortable question for a company at their valuation level. If your
That's me.
website,
That's me making an assumption, by the way. I'm not, I don't have proof on that.
fair enough, I appreciate the intellectual honesty. Let's not build on assumptions, but the observation still stands regardless of how enterprise finds them. Here's what we do know from what's on the page. The home page leads with a consumer level price point and a broad message, and the enterprise proof is buried deeper in the site. So let me ask you something more concrete. When you're on that home page right now, how many clicks does it take you to find the 332% ROI claim or the DocuSign case study?
Ah, good point. It's buried on the enterprise page.
Exactly.
So
And
it's,
that's
yeah.
not a small
No, you continue.
and that's not a small detail. That's a fundamental positioning decision that's being made by default rather than by design. The most powerful proof they have, enterprise ROI, Fortune 500 logos, millions in cost savings, is hidden behind navigation, while the first thing a visitor sees is free to start and $14 a month. That sequencing is telling the market a story, and the story it's telling is we are a small business website tool that also happens to have enterprise clients. When the more powerful story could be, we are the platform that enterprise brands trust to drive real business results. And we're accessible enough that you can start today. Those are two completely different positioning architectures. And
I like
here's what
that.
I want you.
What were you think? Sorry, what you were saying before that, and something I want you to finish your sentence after this. However, what I was thinking while you were talking is that if they position upstream, they then would give more credibility to the average consumer. So instead of positioning downstream, which seems like how they're positioning themselves right now, and I don't know if they're going for a Series D or another round of fundraising, but I think that would give them a very strong differentiator based on the current clients and results that they have. Hmm.
That's a sharp observation, Troy. Positioning upstream creates a gravitational pull downward. It's actually one of the most powerful positioning moves a company can make. Think about how AWS works. Amazon Web Services is trusted by the biggest companies on the planet, and that credibility makes a solo developer feel like they're building on serious infrastructure. The enterprise trust flows down and legitimizes the consumer choice. Webflow could own that same dynamic. If DocuSign and Verifone trust us with their global web presence, imagine what we can do for your business. But here's the detention I want you to name for me, because this is where it gets strategically complex. If Webflow repositions upstream and leads with enterprise credibility, they risk one very specific thing. Do you know what that is?
I don't know what that is. What is it?
They risk alienating the 3.5 million users who are currently their volume engine and their word of mouth machine. Those
Yeah,
designers, freelancers, and
I don't think that they I don't think that they position purely for enterprise. I think they work the enterprise proof points into the main page. They still stay as a website platform for your average consumer, but they leverage those results and testimonies for aspirational leadership.
now that is a precise positioning insight. You're describing a dual narrative architecture where the emotional aspiration is set by enterprise proof, but the entry point remains accessible. That's actually a very sophisticated move when executed correctly. But here's where most companies get this wrong. They just slap logos on the homepage and call it social proof. That's not positioning, that's decoration. The real question is what is the single emotional truth that connects the DocuSign enterprise buyer and the freelance designer at $14 a month? Because if Webflow can find that one unifying idea that makes both of those people feel like they belong to the same story, that is where their category ownership lives. So let me ask you this, Troy. When you think about what those two very different buyers actually have in common emotionally, not functionally, emotionally, what do you think that shared desire is?
I mean, if I look at some of these case studies already, I believe one of the shared desires is growth, more traffic, more customers, speed, ease, and use. Those are the first things that come up for me.
Good. Now let me push you to go one level deeper because growth, speed, and ease, those are functional desires. Every competitor on the market is claiming those same things. Squarespace says ease, Framer says speed, WordPress says growth. Those words are already owned by the noise in the market. So I want you to think about this differently. When a DocuSign marketing team launches a site on Webflow and gets 1,170% increase in traffic, what does that make them feel about themselves and their team internally? And when a freelance designer delivers a Webflow site to a client and the client's jaw drops, what does that make the designer feel about themselves? Is there a shared emotional identity in those two moments?
There's a sense of accomplishment when you get your teams working together and you increase the traffic. There is a sense of accomplishment inside of a client being wowed and a pride that would carry through the individual and to the team. Those are the first things that come up.
Yes, and now we're getting close to something real. Pride, accomplishment, the feeling of being the person or the team that made it happen. That is not a website builder emotion. That is a professional identity emotion. And that is a completely different positioning territory than anything Webflow is currently claiming. Think about what that means. Webflow is not just building websites. They are making marketers, designers, and teams look like heroes internally. They are the tool that makes you the smartest person in the room. And interestingly, go back to their homepage headline. Smarter sites start here. They are one word away from owning that emotional territory. The word smarter is pointing at the site. But the real emotional truth is that Webflow makes you smarter, makes your team look smarter, makes your results undeniable. The site is just the proof. The real product is professional pride and team credibility. So here's what I want to ask you now, Troy. If that is the real emotional core, does anything on their current homepage actually deliver that feeling when you land on it?
No, not really. No, not at all. There's more control and like design it your way and deliver rich experiences, work better with clients. That doesn't really show. There's a bit of a sense of accomplishment and pride in there, but not from a commanding standpoint.
Exactly. And that word you just used, commanding, that's important. Hold on to that. Right now, Webflow's homepage is speaking the language of features and control. Design it your way. Work better with clients. Those are tool-level promises. They're speaking to the hands, not to the identity. But the emotional territory you just described, pride, accomplishment, being the person who made it happen, that speaks to who someone becomes when they use Webflow. That's identity-level positioning. And that is a completely different league. There's a massive difference between here's a tool that gives you control and here's the platform that makes you undeniable. One sells software. The other sells a version of yourself you want to become. And here's what makes this strategically dangerous for Webflow if they don't claim it. Because Framer is already moving into the designer identity space. They're speaking to creative professionals who want to be seen as cutting edge. If Framer owns the creative identity and Webflow stays in the tool and control narrative, Webflow loses the emotional high ground to a younger, faster moving competitor. So, Troy, given everything we've uncovered in this conversation, the positioning gap, the enterprise proof buried on page 3, the emotional territory around professional pride and identity, do you feel like Webflow has a clear positioning strategy right now, or are they drifting?
I think they're drifting. I think I think this position worked for them to get their technology off the ground, to get their first set of, 3.5 million users, potentially over 100K paying customers. So, powering nearly, I'm looking at some stats here, they're powering nearly 500,000 active live websites. No, I think that as you grow and as you develop, there's a level of stagnation that kicks in as operations take over, and you kind of start to lose who you are in the market and where you're at in the market because the market is changing and evolving, and who your customer was on day one isn't necessarily who your customer is on day 1,000. And now they're switching and evolving, and they're not owning that identity in an emotional way. And I think that's it's a big opportunity for them.
That is one of the most accurate diagnoses of a scaling company's positioning problem I've heard articulated. You just described what I'd call positioning drift by operational inertia, where the company gets so focused on building, scaling, and serving that nobody stops to ask, who are we becoming in the market? And is our positioning keeping pace with that evolution? And what makes Webflow's situation particularly interesting is that the market moved around them. AI happened. Framer happened. The no-code movement matured. And suddenly the positioning that got them to 200 million in ARR might be the exact thing that caps them from getting to a billion. Because at $4 billion valuation, the market is expecting a category leader, not a feature-rich website builder. A category leader has a point of view. They have an enemy. They have a cultural position that makes people feel something before they even open the product. And right now, I don't think Webflow has clearly defined any of those three things. So let me ask you the hardest question of this entire conversation, Troy. If Webflow had to name their enemy, not a competitor, but the idea or the condition they exist to destroy, what would that enemy be?
Mediocrity, because pride and accomplishment does not sit with mediocrity. It's they're aiming for the striver, for the person that's going for it, the company that's doing things.
Troy, that's it. Mediocrity as the enemy. That is a positioning stake in the ground that nobody in this category has claimed. Not Squarespace, not Framer, not WordPress, not Adobe. And here's why that's so powerful. Mediocrity is not a competitor, it's a condition. And when you position against a condition rather than a company, you can never be outspent or outfeatured by a rival. Because you're not fighting Framer. You're fighting the idea of settling. And think about how that enemy connects everything we've uncovered today. The freelance designer who delivers a jaw-dropping site, they're rejecting mediocrity. The DocuSign marketing team that gets 1,170% traffic increase, they rejected mediocrity. The Orange Theory team that saved $6 million annually, they rejected mediocrity. Every single case study on that enterprise page is a story of someone who refused to settle. And Smarter Sites Start Here doesn't capture any of that fire. It's a mild, functional, almost apologetic headline for a company sitting on that much proof of excellence. So here's where I want to land with you, Troy. We've now identified the emotional core, the enemy, the positioning gap, and the opportunity. What do you think the single most important thing Webflow needs to change first to start owning this territory?
Really, it's bringing in some of those proof points and framing them in the way of, how did we say this earlier? Framing in the way of not excellence, but pride and accomplishment, and bringing that to the forefront of the website to influence and persuade the main specific users. But then if an enterprise deal lands on the website, they know instantly this is for me.
Yes, and what you just described has a name in positioning architecture. It's called a dual resonance strategy, where the emotional truth is universal enough that both your grassroots user and your enterprise buyer feel seen simultaneously.
That's fantastic. No, this is great. So we just went through that in detail. We found out their dual resonance strategy. And if you'd like to use Edward, head on over to positioningexpert.com, give him a try. And that's it. That's the video. Thank you so much for coming by, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.